Welcome, everybody. Today we have a special guest all the way from Dublin. And yes, there will be transcripts down the bottom, okay? So everybody will be able to understand everything. Welcome, Barry Lynch, the peaceful millionaire, WeCare.com, paradigm coaching, entrepreneur, business coach. Barry does it all. So we are in for some real gems today, everybody. So welcome, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Great to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
It's good to see you again. And I know from our previous conversation, it is going to be a lot of value here. Just to keep the intro going, Barry, the Mindset Doc, 32 podcasts just this year alone. That in itself is an accomplishment. How long has that podcast been going, Barry?
Yeah, it's been going for a while. I find it's quite good actually I find podcasts are quite good for getting rid of what's on your mind as well. So sometimes, you can back up all that information by jumping on your own podcast. You can dump off the stuff and hopefully if somebody is listening, they can learn something from the possible information that you're sharing as well. So, as I said, I love it as a dumping ground. And then, the bonus is meeting people like yourself.
Well, thank you. I don't know that I could do that. I always have guests because they're always much smarter than me and we learn so much from them. So that's the way I think of it.
Well, do you know what? I love that, Craig, because you're right. There's always the smartest person in the room is the person that knows there's someone smarter in the room. So I agree with your statement.
Okay. So you really do it all. You do scaling, you do transformations, you do M&A. So how on earth did you get into this situation and what sort of businesses do you really like to work with? And we won't tell the others, by the way, that you don't like them.
Yeah. So it's funny the way, I've been in business now 34 years. And I suppose I've dabbled in all sorts of businesses myself, trying to make myself become rich and wealthy, and failed a lot of times. I don't know whether it's as a result of the experience or just getting older and then realizing that, it can change as you get older. But certainly for me, it was when I start coaching other businesses on some of my experience 15 or 16 years ago. It sort of led me into other fields where they start asking me about helping to buy a business or giving me advice on buying a business. And then that led to other stuff where other people would ask me then to help them with some form of creating money in something else. And as a result, then the whole lot started to merge together. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it became
it is. It's
like
all
a full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like now, somebody will ask me about helping them buy a business. And then they'll say, oh, by the way, can you help me do that? But also coach me, to buying another business or, coach me with some of the difficulties I have with mindset or whatever the case may be.
Well, my godson's father and I were chatting today, and he and his wife have got into the catering business in recent times. Got a school canteen, then they got another school canteen, then they got a rugby league club, and now they've got a bistro. It's just, and I was chatting with him today, and I said, it reminds me of a story that Hugh Hilton from Hilton Hotels, a coach of mine, he tells this story about when he was brought into Las Vegas and he had to turn this restaurant around inside a casino. And I was able to tell him this story and go through the income generation and growth strategies that Hugh Hilton of Hilton Hotels, you can't get past that. His capabilities there as well. So if this is what he can do, and this is what he's told me how to do it, I can now pass it on to my best mate. And that's the thing when you're dealing with these people, is that you learn these stories, you learn these strategies, and then it gives you so much pleasure to be able to help other people by passing those learnings on.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's funny the way I learned from Tai Lopez, and it was like, it's not the most intelligent person or the smartest person in the room that wins, it's the most adaptable. And what I've learned from working with other people is that the most successful people are the most adaptable. They seem to be able to adapt to change very rapidly. And it's almost like they make decisions quickly. And it was something I'd learned again from my mentor, Bob Proctor, where we make decisions quickly and change them slowly, if ever. Whereas people that struggle with success tend to make decisions rapidly and change them rapidly. So what I found was that working with business owners that, want to create wealth, health and happiness, they tend to be very adaptable in their own confidence and abilities.
Absolutely. And you talk about your mentors. One of mine says that to make a decision and to activate that change, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? What's the most likely thing that can happen? Think of those three things and then
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, make a decision, make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, people don't tend to think about, oh, what's the best, what's the worst, or most likely. They always go for the best. Whenever you get a business proposal in front of you, or you must see it all the time with your businesses, people come to you with, this is what my business is worth. This is what its value is. And then you look at it and think, oh, yes, it might be. Had you not got a personal car that you're running out of the business, that big screen TV that was purchased for the business is now in your lounge room.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like I had a gentleman yesterday, and that's why I was sort of giggling away there while you were saying it. It's amazing, when somebody approaches you, and if you have somewhat experience and you see the holes in the bucket before they do, and that, well, obviously they don't see them, but in a lot of cases. But a gentleman came to me yesterday and he said, I want you to help me sell my business. And I said, yeah, no problem. Let's jump on a quick call and have a chat or whatever. So we jumped on a call, and I said, the first thing I said to him is, look, do you mind me asking you, what's the value of your business? And he said, well, 1 million. And I said, okay, what's your revenue? And he said, well, I haven't done any revenue yet. And I said, so, and how old is the business? And he says, 5 years. And I said, so you've been in business 5 years, it's valued at 1 million, and you've no revenue, no turnover. And he says, yeah, no, I'm just looking for a partner to get involved with me. But he says, it's worth 1 million. And I said, I didn't say anything yet. I always have to take a deep breath because
You
that's
do.
where the problem comes in. Yeah. And you go, I'm just about to blow this guy's bubble. He's worked on something for 5 years. He's had the dream and he's looked at the future and nothing's happened. And now here's me coming on a call with him and I'm just about to blow the bubble, burst the bubble and tell him that actually it's not worth anything because it's only hypothetical. And, I always sort of walk around it a little bit. I don't tell them directly. I try to bring them around and start saying to them, well, look, maybe, should look for a partner or maybe you should do this. So we spent about 10 minutes talking about it. And then he realized the penny had dropped and he said, well, realistically, he says, I don't have a value on the business. I said, that's exactly it. Because the worst thing I feel, if I was there, I've been there, had the dreams and the expectations. And, when somebody tells you, all of a sudden that, it's worthless, you're going, oh my God, I can't believe this guy just said that to me. How dare he? But the reality of it is that sometimes that happens. And I think that's where, I suppose when it comes to mergers and acquisitions or buying and selling businesses, it's not about being nasty to somebody. It's about helping them on their journey to maybe bring them to the next stage, but subtly letting them know that, what your experience you can pass over.
I have to agree. It isn't the first question that I ask, by the way, what their business is worth. The first question that I ask over a hot chocolate or something is,
Yeah.
what are you going to be 2 years doing 2 years after you exit this business and sell this business? That's the question I ask first, because if they haven't thought of that, then they haven't developed their future. They haven't developed their plan yet. And it's a nice warmer upper anyway. But
Yeah.
when you do come down to their business, I personally have a set of 4 forms that I like people to fill out. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is the first one is on another one of your skills, and that's the fixer-upper type stuff, is where are people spending their time on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? How much how much time are they spending? Who is spending it? And what is their value? So that I can see how much a task is. Because you do AI stuff as well, don't you?
It's amazing though, isn't it? With like what you've just said, people don't think far enough ahead. Like I always say, a lot of people get caught up with feelings and emotions. And what I mean by that is when somebody gives them a number about a business, well, then they start focusing on the number and the money and they get caught up with the feelings and emotions of that. Whereas if you park the feelings and emotions and start thinking about, like, as you said, what is it going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, all of a sudden you can have a business owner or a director who's very full on with the business, in it 10, 12 hours a day, find himself that now he's got a pocket of money, but he's doing nothing. He doesn't know what to do, and he's not sure because he's now sold a business. He maybe has sold a non-compete, so he can't even be in that business for the next 5 years, and now he's just lost.
Yeah.
As you said, a very good question initially. What do you see yourself doing? And then in some cases, you'll have people that say, "Actually, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to move out. But you know what? I want to grow it. I want to build it to the next stage." So it always
Hey,
leads to something else.
that's exactly right. You get out of the business and go and do something else. Then, if the business is still operating after your first 6 weeks of holidays and the income has increased after that first 6 weeks of you being on holidays, then you know you've got a business.
Happy days. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yay, that's good. But then you put a COO in there, an operating officer in there, someone to run it for you so you don't have to do it. You've still got a great business. Sure, you have to pay them, and you may not be putting as much cash in your back pocket, but you've got a business rather than buying yourself a job.
And then time, you get back so much time. Like I did it with a business about 5 years ago. Again, I put a manager in. I stepped out of it, and I counted about 4 hours a week is what I was doing, but it allowed me then to do the coaching and help other people do the same as what I've done, build a business, multiple services, multiple revenues. And then, of course, all I was doing was setting it up from a systemized effect. So, like what you said, systemize the business and automate as much areas as you can, allowing you to step out of it and then get involved in other businesses or, become even more happier, healthier, and wealthier. Because for me, the biggest problem was for 25 years, I was an unconscious competent. So I didn't know how I was creating my own success. I was just doing it. And then I found it difficult to come out of the business because I was in it so much. But when I did, it was so much better because I could do other stuff and put my energy into other stuff while still having the income. Now, I ended up selling that business because when it was systemized, somebody came in and offered me money for it. I was delighted to do that. It was a no-brainer. But even though me as a coach and me coaching people in mindset, when I stepped out of that, I was still lost. Even though I knew what I wanted to do, I was still lost because my own paradigms, my own habits, beliefs, and behaviors had got me stuck into that for the 25 years that I was doing it. So I found it difficult then to step out of it, and actually come out of it and stay out of it. But, I'd say it probably took me about a year to really get myself back to, being happy, healthy, and creating more wealth. But I was a little bit lost for a year. I suppose that's understandable because of the fact that it was so long that I did 25 years for the same business.
Yes. Well, a friend of mine, Patrick Lang in the US, he's sold 328 HVAC businesses.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. He was in it for 25 years, built up a rather large business, and then sold it. Well, the buyer turned out to be his son. So
Okay.
he thought, great, I get to keep my office.
Yeah.
So he stayed in the office for 6 months until his son came in and said, "You're out of here.
Yeah.
You're not in the business anymore. Get out. Go and build your own business. Take your money and do something useful with your life."
I'd say that was a difficult thing to do. I've been there when it comes to family.
Now he and his son are just great friends. They've partnered in another business as well that he does, but his son runs the business that he paid good money for and borrowed money for, by the way. And his dad runs his new business, and they're doing some JVs as well. So it all worked out. But it was right. He did not have a plan for once he got out. So he just thought, this is my chair, this is my desk, and I'm happy. Well, no, go and get a life and develop your own life.
Yeah, it's funny. I was involved. My brother had the brother and I had a business together for 25 years. And that's the business we exited. But I remember when I started doing the coaching and when I really got into it. So I was coaching about 15 years, but ad hoc, like just somebody asked me or whatever. That was fine. But about 7 years ago, I started working with Bob Proctor and start doing a lot of the mindset stuff with him for myself. This wasn't for me coaching now. It was me coaching me
Yep,
to get
been
out
there,
of
done
my
that.
own paradigms. Yeah. So what happened was the brother started doing a little bit of, well, he had no interest in it, and that was fine. It's not for everybody. But it turns out that when I realized that the business I was in wasn't for me anymore, I had to bring him in, sit him down, and tell him that I didn't want to be in this business anymore. And that was the most difficult thing I've ever done because
Wow.
I'd with my brother for 25 years. And
You
now I was
broke a
telling him,
partnership.
yeah, I didn't want to, to
Mm.
me, I was destroying it. His life was everything that revolved around the business and me. So I made all the decisions. I ran the business, and it worked. It was like a fantastic partnership because he worked with the road and he did the operations. He looked after the guys in the road, and then I looked after all the back end of the office. But to my amazement, the day we sat down in the office, he turned around and said, I'm sick of this as well. I'm delighted. I'm happy. I could not believe that I had put something off for so long. And then when we had the discussion, he agreed. I'd say within a year, then we had the business sold. We moved on. And it was the best thing. Even we speak about it regularly. It's the best thing we ever done because he went from working 12 or 14-hour days to working 6 or 7 hour days. He stayed working with the company. And then as he said himself, he didn't know what to do in his evenings. He didn't know what to do in his weekend. He said he'd be out washing the car. And, he said it just got back time. Still had the same quality of life, but just hadn't got the responsibilities.
This is not where I thought this conversation was going to go, Barry. Today, we have spoken extensively about the mindset of exiting, really, haven't we? This has pretty much been about. And I think it's so important for people. And I'm glad that you've actually been through the experience of and know so much about this. But people need to be aware that they need to understand what they're going to be doing after they exit. But you and I, we both love building things as well, building businesses. Now, I mentioned earlier about the AI side of things, that you do a bit of AI integration, automation, systemization as well. Now, I was just chatting with someone yesterday. Not only has he stuck his brain into ChatGPT, but in July, wow, 2 days, in July, he's sticking his brain inside a robot as well.
Wow, yeah.
And I'm going to get to have a play with this in November so it's going to go through some testing, but I'm going to get to have a bit of a play with this in November. Where do you think this is going for businesses?
Look, it is the future, whether people like it or not. I was reading something there a couple of days ago, and they were saying about a lot of people are still not, taking on to ChatGPT. But I think the thing is that it will become, part of everybody's day. It'll become part of a mobile phone. It'll become part of asking a question. And the reason being is because, when you put the right prompt into it, it can do anything for you and it saves you a lot of time. I was with a client the other day and she had a contract, and it was a contract. She's in the teeth whitening business. She does extremely well. And she presented me with a contract. It was a written contract that she gets somebody to sign when they come in and get their teeth or whatever done. Or she also does veneers, clip-on veneers. So when they get the veneers, they sign a contract, and then the contract states all the pros and cons of what they do. And, she showed it to me and she said, look, is there any way you can have a quick eye over that and come back to me? And I said, yeah, no problem at all. Give it to me. The next day I looked at it and I went, oh my God, it's like 7 pages. A person coming in to sign a 7-page contract, they'll think they're, signing for a mortgage for a home. So I said to her, no, I can sort that out. And she goes, what do you think you do? And I said, I'll stick it in ChatGPT and it'll spit out a contract that'll probably be a page long with check boxes on it. And she goes, oh my God, I don't believe it. And I said, yeah. She said, so you're not even doing it? And I said, I am, but now I find that it just helps me to get it done quicker, because I said, if you ask me to do this, it'd probably take me 3 or 4 hours. I'll put it in ChatGPT. I said, paste and copy it in, and asked them to rewrite it in a checkbox or tick box. And I said, it'll spit me out the solution. So I said, the reality of it is that this is going to save me time and you time, and you'll have something that's probably more accurate than what if I done it myself. I said, because you're getting the information. So I said, it's a time saver. And then she said, oh, I must start using ChatGPT more, because I know that this lady is so busy. So by her utilizing it. So long story short, ChatGPT, AI is the future, I believe, for everything. It's going to become part of everything. Like get into your car, your mobile phone, your computer, it'll just be all voice orientated. And I think that's what's going to see, rapid growth also in a lot of areas for a lot of people.
So where a business is going to be if they don't come on board with this in the next, say, 6 months, 12 months?
Yeah, look, I think business are going to get left behind. Again, when I mentioned earlier about, it's not the strongest, it's not the most intelligent, it's the most adaptable. And if there's one thing I'll always say, and, I probably shouldn't be propping myself up here, but I believe my success is down to me being most adaptable. I was always the one in my business that come up with an app. I was always thinking ahead of advertising. I was always trying to keep ahead of the curve of my competition. I'd watch what they're doing, and then I do something that's coming up that's faster, quicker, and better. And of course, ChatGTP AI is exactly that. So businesses that don't acquire it, they're just going to get left behind, and the chances are they won't acquire customers as quickly or as fast as they would normally. And then you've also got to look at when we look at Google Ads and certain things like that. There's a lot of businesses don't realize that they need to be doing stuff to keep ahead, but they don't do it, and then they wonder why their business is not generating as much income as it should. And when we look at ChatGPT and automation systemizing, a lot of business owners tend not to look after the current customers they have. The amount of businesses I speak to, and I say, oh, you may send out an email, send out an email sequence once a month or once every 2 weeks to your past customers. And they go, no, 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 you can't pee them off. No, you can't do that. That'll drive them mad. And I said, if you don't, your competitors will, and they will get them.
That's the
If you don't
point.
keep regular contact, retention of clients.
There are that many customers. Either those customers are going to you or they're going to someone else.
Yeah.
You choose, but that customer base isn't getting any bigger. It's just going different places, and it may not be to you.
Yeah. It's like I'd said to a client recently, he had a customer base of 2,500, and he was in the alarm business, so service orientated business, which is what I work with a lot. But he had said that he'd never sent an email to them, and I said, "Well, look, let's do it." No, 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 don't, no, don't. I said, "Look, let's do it just for pig iron. Let's do it."
Yeah.
We took his database, we threw it into a software, and we spit it out. 69 phone calls he got, and 60 of them were jobs, people looking for upgrades, repairs. And I said, "You would have never got them because they won't call you." And I said, "Your competition would have get them." And he said, "Oh, no, 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 no." He says, they're people that definitely come back to me." And I said, they don't give an SH about you. I said,
No.
they're looking after them. They can't remember who you are or where you are. So they'll pick up the phone book. Well, they don't pick a phone book anymore, but they'll pick up a computer and look at Google and just pick randomly someone to fix the job because it's faster. I said, they don't want to go out and try and figure out who you were or where you were or what you were. So I said, it's up to you to keep in contact with them. And that's where your business will grow quicker.
Let me just add to that just a fraction. It's not just ChatGPT, by the way. It's the information behind that you've put into it as well that makes you and your business. You draw upon that. However, this AI stuff can not only, before it sends the email, it can write the email based on that particular template you've given it, go and do a search for the person in your CRM, if you've got one, then go and look at their social media in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, look what they've been doing, match it up with what your proposal is, what your email is about, and send back stuff all about them already. How likely are they to read that email then? That's what's going to be happening in the next 3 months.
Yeah, I agree.
The future, we are not looking at the future any longer. It is here and is being used. Now it's just in its infancy, but it is being used and it is becoming far more usable. Then when you throw on top of it the different agents as well. So it is going to make a huge difference to our business and to every business. From a coaching perspective, just yesterday, I attended a coaching student's presentation that he did. And I said to him, "Can I have the transcript, please?" I'm on the phone with him. "Can I have the transcript, please?" Emailed me the transcript. I ran it through my AI, not ChatGPT, but my AI, and set it up, summarized it, said, how can we improve this? Blah, blah, blah. How can we get more interaction? And I emailed this back to him. And about midnight last night, I got a response back. Wow, I'm making this happen now.
I know that, yeah.
But that adds value in the eyes of the coaching student for me. I'm more valuable because it is impossible for them to generate this because this is my AI. It's my brain, it's my data, my approach.
Yeah. I think, and look, and it has become so advanced, it's there's some businesses that it will, AI can never replace, but there are businesses it will. A coaching perspective, like the other day, I came across a guy and he was saying that, oh, don't employ a coach anymore, just go to AI. And I said, yeah, that's great, but AI can't give you accountability. AI will ask you, but you can refuse to do it. Whereas generally a coach or a mentor will follow up and then ensure that you do it and force you to do it. Whereas AI is just something else, like your parents asking you to do your room years ago, or your teacher asking you, you'll either do it or you won't. And that's the way it'll be. Whereas a coach that's accountable to somebody will encourage them and make sure that they follow through to get the results that they need. So again, look, it is something that's not going to change in the future, on the basis of that it is going to change rapidly for everybody and everything. And that's not going to change because that's inevitable. There's nobody going to be able to stop it. And I think taking that on, whether it's your business or your personal life, to utilize it to save you time and money is a no-brainer.
Absolutely. We've just got onto some really good subjects here, but we haven't spoken as much about you as what I would like to. So can you tell me about you, your business, who you're looking for, how we can help you, please?
So I've primarily I work with business owners and entrepreneurs, and that ranges from service-orientated business to bricks and mortar. I tend to look for somebody that wants more from life and business, or maybe somebody that's stuck in their current life and business, but not sure what way to get out of it. And so we generally find out what's holding them back, what their beliefs, behaviors, and habits are, and show them how to change them and allow them to adapt into it. And then in some cases, I've found where they want to then decide they don't want that business, they want another business. So we'll help them acquire another business or help them sell that business. So whatever, as I said earlier, it's like a full circle.
Yes.
So it's very much a case of that, I like to work with people that want more. And when they want more, I can tend to help them get more. And most of it is as a result of some of the stuff that I've gone through myself.
Everybody wants more. That's a given. Everybody will even go and do a course. They'll pay for something because I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen until they absolutely commit to making the change. How do you do that? And I really want to know this from my perspective, because I fluffed about for 20 years on this, and then it was just one thing that tipped me over the edge, and I had 100% commitment and 10% commitment. How do you do that?
There's a combination of lots of things here. So when I seek to work with somebody that wants more, I have a process that I go through to find out why they want more. And then we look at where they currently are, what they want, and then we create a roadmap to get there. So then we start to delve into their decision-making process. So, are they somebody that delays decision-making process? We then look at procrastination. Do they put it off for a period of time, which most people do? They say they're going to do something, they don't do it. And then we look at their paradigms, their beliefs, their behaviors, and their habits. And then we seek to change that to allow them to move forward. But we also have to ensure that they have belief, or create a belief to get there. And then we've got to look at, do they have the desire and passion to want to get there? Because again, like what we mentioned earlier, a lot of people get caught up with emotions and feelings, and they want something, but in fact, they don't really want it. They just want the money. But when you have somebody that learns their purpose and realizes that this is what they want to do, well, then passion and desire comes into it, and then they start to move forward. And then persistence.
Now you're describing me.
No, very good, very good.
Persistence.
That allows them to move forward. So a combination of what I've just explained there, is about the person then taking the action. So we create the roadmap, the clarity, and the goals, the future, and then we make sure that they take the actionable steps. And as I always say to somebody, if you take an actionable step every day of something that brings you closer to your goal, well, then long and behold, you start to see your goal coming towards you.
Well, I'm going to say my closing comment here, because Barry and everybody that's watching this, Barry has just outlined exactly what you need. How do I know that? Because I have been through this. And had I caught up with Barry and he stepped me through, set up that roadmap, and then use the other word that you didn't use in this last bit, accountability, then my life would have changed much sooner than it did. So I encourage everybody, catch up with Barry, especially the Mindset Doc podcast, and change your life, not just today and tomorrow, but change it permanently. And that's where that roadmap of Barry's will come in. So that's it for me, Barry. What last words would you like to have?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Craig. Look, it's been a pleasure to jump on. As I always say, hang around with people that think the same as you, and
That's
I
scary.
would say that you and I think very similar.
Oh, well, in that case, I lied. It wasn't the last word. In that case, based on what Barry said, put yourself in the right room. Put yourself in Barry's room, okay? Thanks very much, Barry. Really appreciate you coming on board today.
Cheers, Craig. Thank you.